All right. So joining me today, I've mentioned her a few times, is Jeanette Grace. Jeanette is one of our experts and facilitators that IPD uses to do teaching. Um, she is a really good expert in communication. And that's because she's probably a Metro State alumni. And we emphasize those kind of skills at Metro State. So, communication expert, change expert, conflict resolution expert. So, all of those skills come together to in today's topic. Why are some people so hard to manage? I do want to make you aware that we record these sessions. And so some of you may want to remain a little bit anonymous in interacting in the session today. So we have set up the Q&A, which means you can use the Q&A option to submit a question that I will read and address, but I won't share your name. So that's a great way to interact with us. But Jeanette is also open to fielding questions with hand raises or through the chat. But just know that if you raise your hand and ask a question, you're identified. And if you put a question in the chat, you're identified. And we're recording. So with that, we haven't even started yet. And we have Stephanie Swenson with a hand raised. Stephanie, do you have a question you'd like to get in here before we get started? Hand went down, might have been an accidental hand raise. Okay. All right. And I see something in the chat, Jeanette, but that might be you and I yep. Okay. So we're all clear. We're ready for the next slide. We are excited to have Jeanette always, but extra excited to have her because we will be launching a new series soon called Expert Edge Sprints. And these are built on the success of Expert Insights. I'm looking over the list, and I feel like a lot of you are returning participants to Expert Insights. So we use the same set of great instructors. We can rotate it for timely topics, and we can also offer this type of virtual live training to your team. And our clients, loyal clients, met with us and said, we love your immersive workshops, but it'd be great with our busy schedules if we had things that were a little shorter, more targeted for a specific skill. And that's what the Expert Edge sprints are meant to be. And they are going to feature high impact, focused learning. So we're excited for that. Oh, shoot, I was supposed to put the link in the chat. I will work on that. Should have had that ready. All right. But in the meantime, you can go to the next slide, Jeanette. Once I put the link in the chat, you'll be able to use it. Maybe it's a good thing I waited because we want them focused on what you're saying today, Jeanette, instead of going to the website and looking stuff up. So, but it'll take you to this page where you can search our Expert Edge sprints, and you see above, you can search by time, you can search by instructor, and you see here, I've searched by Jeanette Grace, and her courses pop up for me. You can search by topic and you can search by cost. And when you see the less than 500, less than 1,000, again, these are team trainings, not individual trainings. So, so they are more affordable. So I think we are ready then for Jeanette, for you to switch to your slides and start teaching us today.
Okay, excellent. Well, good afternoon and welcome to you. Thanks for spending your lunch with us. And I just saw something pop up in the chat, so I want to make sure. I'm going to let Beth do the moderation of the chat. I'll look in there if I see questions come up. But Beth, if you maybe want to answer that, that would be fantastic. Just jump in whenever you need to, Beth. So we're here to talk about why some people are so difficult to manage. And managing can just be working with them. It can be actually if you're in a leadership role and you need to lead them. But as Beth said, we'll be doing some more extensive classes. So we're gonna touch on like understanding where this difficult behavior comes from. what drives it. And then if you're like, ooh, I want more information and skills and tools of what to do about it, then there are a couple more classes that will help to support what you learned today. But this, hopefully today is a little bit eye-opening, because what I find is that we have all worked with difficult people. And as we go through this, you're probably going to have people who pop in your head, um, their faces, experiences. And I think that those are really good to draw from while you're learning. I would also suggest that you have pen and paper handy, because there is something I am going to ask you to write down, to kind of reflection, an assessment sort of, but trying to take the information that I'm sharing and attach it to something that's useful going forward. So hopefully you have something to write with. And Beth did answer the question in the chat. Um, and again, Beth's going to be really great about moderating. She's going to check the Q&A. She's going to watch for hands. And like I said, I'll keep an eye in the chat and if I see a question come up. So love questions. I think that they help us all learn better. All right, so I want to start off with a little bit about an experience that I had with a difficult person. Now, this is not really what she looked like. This is in the world of AI, an AI generated photo. Um, and this person, this was over 30 years ago that I worked with this person, but it still sticks with me as somebody that was difficult to work with, somebody that was difficult to manage if we were working on projects. And let me tell you a little bit about why I saw her as difficult. She was overly positive, and at the time, I worked for a retail optical company and ran the training department and supported the vice president. And she honestly would walk around the office and say to people, she'd greet them with saying, "It's a great day in eyewear. It's a great day in eyewear." So she was just like over the top positive. Okay. You may think, well, at least she was pleasant. I get it. She was pleasant. But sometimes when people are overly positive, we wonder why, like what's beneath it. Some other things. She would want to tell you what you wanted to hear. So she wouldn't necessarily speak the truth. She wouldn't have her thoughts, her ideas voiced, because she just wanted to agree with you, tell you what you wanted to hear. Because of that, she had often poor follow through. Like you knew you couldn't count on her when she said she would do something, because she would tell you yes because she thought that's what you wanted to hear, but then she wouldn't actually follow through with what she said yes to. Couple other things about her is she'd like to insert herself in situations. You might be having a dialogue with a coworker, and then all of a sudden there she was, and she was trying to become part of the conversation. So you're constantly managing, like, why is this person inserting themselves? This conversation doesn't apply to the work that they do. And she just kind of fluttered around, and she really wanted to make everyone happy. So she tried to be the popular person, best friends with everyone, wanted everybody to like her. So in some ways, she was really lovely and present, but in some ways, it was so over the top that it was difficult. And it was difficult, like I said, to count on her. So, the reason I tell you this story is because often when we think about difficult people, we think about people who are argumentative, people who are rude, people who are overly aggressive, where they can sometimes be very pleasant and very nice, but yet it's difficult behavior, because when it prevents us from getting our work done, or it prevents us from being able to trust one another in the workplace and have that camaraderie and cohesion on projects and in teams, it's difficult. So I'm going to have you just put that in the back of your mind, because we're going to circle back to Lori a little bit later, and this is Lori, the person on your screen. All right, now what I'm going to ask you to do is take a moment to ponder about the most difficult person you work with. And if you're in a formal leadership role, it will could be somebody you manage, but maybe it's not somebody you manage. Maybe it's just somebody that you work with, could be another leader. Maybe if you're not in a formal leadership role, it's your boss, it's your coworker, it's somebody on another team. But I want you to have someone in mind that is the most difficult person that you work with. All right. Hopefully you have somebody in mind. We're going to go into this first part of understanding the neurology of our brain and how it creates difficult behavior. Because what I say is we don't really come out of the womb as a difficult person to work with. There is a reason why we might exhibit difficult behavior. And if I was to ask people, are you a difficult person to work with? A lot of times when I ask that question, people are like, no, because we're always looking outward about other people being difficult. But we are also difficult at times, and there is a reason why. So let's talk about that. A little bit about the brain science here. All right. So in your brain, you have this small spot in your brain that is called the amygdala. And the amygdala is the emotional center of your brain. All the information you take in throughout the day, whether it's a visual, whether it's auditory, any type of your five senses, you are processing that information in that emotional part of your brain first. Sometimes people say, well, but I'm a really analytical person and I'm very logical and I'm very calm. You're still processing the information in the emotional part of your brain. Just the behavior on what you're doing with that information is going to look different if you tend to think of yourself as a more analytical person versus an emotional person. But so you have this amygdala. What happens is as that information comes into your brain, if it is congruent, meaning aligned, or it fits with where you are at a given time. So maybe you are feeling really stressed, or maybe you're feeling really relaxed. That information, if it comes in and it fits that, you are going to be happy. So maybe it's a situation of you're hoping that somebody will tell you yes, and you get a yes answer, right? Then you are happy. And we stay in a place where we're calm, where we can think rational thoughts, where we can problem solve, we can think critically. Maybe it's a situation where we've probably all been here. You are behind on a deadline and you don't know how you're going to meet it. And all of a sudden, you find out that they have extended the deadline. You have another 2 hours or you have another day, right? That's congruent. That makes us happy. But when that information comes into your brain and you're wanting a yes, and instead you get a no, or you are stressed because you're behind on a project and that deadline doesn't get extended, that information is incongruent. And therefore, we are unhappy. And I'm simplifying this a bit, but information that fits whatever is emotionally happening in our amygdala is going to be congruent. It's going to make us happy. It's incongruent. It makes us dissatisfied or unhappy. So here's what happens. When that information is congruent, you will, or anyone will perceive that as a threat. And threat is a really strong word. It can be something really big. It can be like I'm concerned for my safety. Absolutely. But it can be also very minor. So for example, you're in a meeting and you say something and you had a coworker who said that they were going to back you up in that meeting, and then all of a sudden they go silent and you feel embarrassed. That is perceived as a threat. Well, what will happen is whenever that threat is perceived, so that information is incongruent, you as a human being or they as a human being will immediately move into a state of wanting to protect or preserve whatever is important to you. So if in that situation where your coworker doesn't back you up, you are going to want to protect that feeling of embarrassment, or maybe if you were feeling betrayed. And as a result, when you protect or preserve, your reaction is a default behavior. And there are different types of default behaviors. What the research shows us is that we operate differently throughout the day. I find that there's a group of default behaviors that I spend more time in than other groups of default behaviors, and we'll talk about what those are. But that default behavior then is what other people see as difficult. All we're trying to do is protect and preserve ourselves so we can remove that threat because our emotional brain is going bonkers. Okay? So that's really what is happening. That person themselves probably isn't, I'm not even going to say probably. People are not just difficult. There is a reason why they're difficult, and that is because there is a threat and they're going to protect or preserve themselves. Therefore, they are going to move to default behavior that other people see as difficult because that behavior that they exhibit is incongruent in our own brain. It doesn't fit. All right, so we're going to get to some common difficult behaviors, and I want to just throw it out there to you. What are things, before we jump into this, what do you perceive as threats? What are things that are threatening in the workplace? And I'll give you an example. One could be being rushed. You don't like being rushed to give an answer. You don't like being rushed to write an email. You don't like being rushed to create a report, whatever it is. What are other things that you feel like make your amygdala react, where you're like, whoa, I don't like this. I'm uncomfortable with this. It feels like something's getting under your skin. And you can go ahead.
Jeanette,
Yes.
yeah, do you want these in chat or Q and
I was
A or
just going to say,
both?
if you want to
Okay.
throw those in chat, that would be awesome.
And if you want to remain anonymous, I will read anything you put in your Q and A.
Perfect. Thank you, Beth. And so while you're sharing some of that, on
I
the
was going to
opposite,
say, Jeanette, now that I interrupted you, can you repeat the question?
yes, I would like to hear. So if we let me just go back here because then maybe the visual will be helpful. Threats. So what are things that happen during the workday that you feel threatening? Things that you know that you have an emotional reaction because what you need or want at that time, kind of how you're operating, is that information is incongruent to what you need. So the example I gave is being rushed. Like maybe you're at a point where you're like, I really need to take time to make sure there are no errors on this. And you have somebody who's rushing you to make that decision. Okay, I see. I'm asked a question that I do not know the answer off of the top of my head. That's a great one. That's a really great one. Let me see. And I know I
In the Q&A, Jeanette, we have a certain team member who I supervise is prone to making accusations and dismissing my thoughts and my other project manager's thoughts.
okay. So being dismissed. And what was the first part of that, Beth?
Making accusations.
Okay. Accusations being dismissed. Okay. These are all, they're so interesting to hear because you'll be able to connect it to what we talk about in a moment. Okay. I see in the chat being called out in meetings in a confrontational manner instead of asking a simple question, or people who are always the devil's advocate and point out why it's wrong or issues. Oh, Julie, I get it. And my one of my favorite responses, not from an emotional reaction, but it's to say, how do you think we should solve that? Like that's a way to address that. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Okay, so excellent. Some others that I'll throw out there, and I'm having us go through this because we can attach it to the things that I'm talking about in a little bit. Maybe being ignored or being left out. Maybe it's waiting on something from someone so that you can do what you need to do. Um, Criticism in general. Um,
How about the black hole of communication where you send off an email or a text and you go hours or days without hearing from someone?
Oh, yeah, that's a great one. And because that could be an example of like I'm not getting what I need to get my job done, or you just feel like maybe you're being ignored. It could represent different things. Absolutely. Any boundary violations, that could be a physical boundary violation, it could be a language violation. What about complicating simple things? Like you feel like it should be so simple and somebody's complicating it. Like I ask you a question and you should be able to give me an answer in 2 words, but now you've gone on for 3 minutes giving me an answer. Um, an unresponsive boss, that's one that I've heard from people. And this is an interesting one I've heard from people in the past is like, I'm the one who always has to clean the break room, or I'm the one who always has to make the coffee. Um, Interruptions. That is a very common one I'll throw out there, just being interrupted where you feel like you can't get your flow of work going. So think about those things that are threatening to you, because like I said, we can attach it to what you're going to learn in a moment. All right, so let's go to common difficult behaviors. I'm going to give you 12 of them, but what I'm going to ask you to do as we go through this is when you hear a behavior that sounds familiar, I want you to write it down, but I'm going to have you make a T-chart because I'm going to have you look at yourself. And I also, when I asked you to think about that difficult person that you work with, I want to call them for them. And what's going to happen is I'm going to give you a description of a behavior in orange. I don't want you to write that down. I want you to write down what you see in white. It's more of a the label or the name of the difficult behavior. And let me circle back. I see what also came into the chat. I often get mansplained on my expertise and knowledge is disregarded, especially in technical aspects. And I have years of experience, but I'm often ignored. All right, that I can feel that under my skin right now. All right, so a column for you, a column for the difficult person that you work with or manage, and then as I go through, just listen to the description and see if that describes either yourself or the other person. And then when the label or the name of the behavior shows up, then that is what I want you to write down because we're going to come back to this. All right, so here's a difficult behavior. Nothing ever measures up, and they believe they care about excellence more than anybody on the team or anybody in the workplace. This could be maybe this is how the devil's advocate comes up because they don't see how it's ever going to be good enough. So if you or the difficult person you work with represents that type of behavior, I want you to write down the word disassociating because that is what they do when they feel like they care about more than anyone and nothing measures up. They start to disassociate from people, perhaps, or from the problem or from the project. All right, the next one. People's their behavior, they smother creativity and they extinguish hope. So a little bit of a Debbie Downer. These people are very despairing, or you might see them a little bit like Eeyore from Winnie the Pooh, but they're all about maybe data. They're all about analysis, and they don't want to spend time brainstorming. They also see the risk, but they can't see the possibility. So they extinguish the hope. So this could example be a devil's advocate as well. Okay, the next one. People who behave helpless. They feel like they carry the burden of everyone. Like, I'm sad for everyone, or boy, that project got killed, and I am so sad about it, more sad about anybody else. And I just don't even know what to do anymore because we poured our heart and soul into that project. So they feel helpless, and it comes off as whining. All right. Rude comments, sarcasm. So this might be humor that's hidden in sarcasm. Oh, I was just kidding. Um, but this behavior tends to make other people look foolish. This could be calling someone out in a meeting, making them look bad, and you think that you're making yourself look great. And this is a very attacking type of behavior. I used to work with someone who was like this and would take an opportune time when our boss was in the room, and that's when they would say things that were really rude and that were embarrassing. And I was new on the team. They had a lot of tenure. I did not. So really, I had a strong emotional reaction to it. All right. People who just shove people back on track. They are like, you know what? I am going to take over. This is not going well. You're not talking fast enough. You are off track. You're off topic. And what's really interesting about this behavior is it can be really loud and forceful and aggressive, or it can be a very quiet, kind of stealthy type of behavior. But it's a controlling type of behavior. I'm going to control the room. I'm going to control the conversation, going to control the meeting. And again, I can't say enough. It can be a very, very quiet, like understated, or it can be very obvious. All right, next, pompous opinions. I know what is best. I have already found the answer. I have already solved the problem because I have tenure, because I am smart, because I have a title, because I have education, because I have experience, whatever the reason is. But they come off as very pompous and that their idea is the best idea. And we'll call this pontificating. So again, any of these describe you or the difficult person you work with? I'm just going to have you write that in that column. Okay, then there is a behavior where it's really focused on how do I make other people happy? How do I please other people? But there's also this element of inaction because they're waiting for better options. Like the options they see in front of them aren't aren't assured. Like, if I choose this, this person might be mad. If I don't choose this, this person might be mad. So I'm just going to wait until there is something even better that comes along. So then I don't do anything. And this is a type of placating. All right. Then there are people who just want to keep the peace. It's very important that there is not dissension. It is very important that it may even be that because there's healthy conflict and then there's unhealthy conflict. And the unhealthy conflict is very combative. Healthy conflict is what we want. That helps creativity, it helps problem solving. But this type of behavior can often be uncomfortable with any type of conflict. And this tends to be a very quiet type of behavior. So when we see it, we're not going to see someone talking a lot, somebody talking loudly. They won't be inserting themselves into conversation because what they've done is they have withdrawn. So it's a very withdrawing type of behavior. I kind of blend into the background. Okay. Then we have a behavior that's very focused on other people. It is a type of people pleasing. And because of this behavior, when we exhibit it, we lack accountability. Possibly we might be blaming other people, putting it outward, which might sound counterintuitive to if I'm trying to please someone, but it's like I'm pleasing them, so therefore I'm not doing what I'm doing, but I'm not going to take accountability because I'm going to say, oh, but here's the reason I was helping so and so meet their deadline. And that's why I didn't meet my deadline. Instead of saying, hmm, maybe I should have prioritized my work over somebody else's work. And that type of behavior is a yesing behavior. We say yes a lot when we do this. So again, this is an example of a very nice person or a nice behavior, but yet it's very difficult because it's hard to get our work done if we can't count on other people. All right, then there is a behavior that's very playful. This might be the behavior that you see where they bring levity into a difficult situation. They like to make other people laugh. So they're teasing. Now, I talked earlier about a behavior that might have some sarcasm to it. These can be hard to tell because teasing not everybody thinks is funny, but this would be in probably pretty good nature, like really just trying to maybe lighten the room, or maybe they're just bored and so they're just being playful and they just like to make people laugh because when people laugh, hey, look at me. Okay, then we have this can be pretty obvious an outburst or people who just blow up like they're just like, oh my gosh, would somebody let me talk? Or would you stop interrupting me? And that emotional reaction has really taken over in an outward aggressive way. And we're going to call this exploding. All right. And then there is a behavior of people who think that they know a lot, act like they know a lot. And when other people don't necessarily accept or acknowledge that, they will tend to repeat themselves. Like if I think I know it, the more I repeat it is the more real it becomes, is the more truth it has. And we will call that exaggerating. Now, these labels, I'm just putting labels on it to make it easy to write it down instead of writing descriptions. All right. So what I'm going to ask you to do is participate in the Slido poll. You can use the QR code with your phone, or you can go to slido.com and type in that code 10089590. And I'm not asking you about yourself, but I am asking about the difficult person you work with. What is their most prominent behavior? If you look at that list, and you're going to see these are grouped. So you will choose one of them. And like if you're like, oh, they're controlling, well, choose the first one. If you're like, they're despairing, then choose the last one. So I'm going to give you a moment to do that, and then I'm going to pop up the poll results for you. All right. I'm going to go ahead and show you the results. I'm going to give you like 10 more seconds if you haven't already participated in the poll. All right. It is pretty clear, as you will see in front of you. So 64% of you are identifying the most difficult person you work with as attacking, controlling, or pontificating. 17% is teasing, exploding, exaggerating, and 17% is disassociating, despairing, or whining. And no one in the placating, withdrawing, or the yesing. And here's what I'll say about those first two. Those first two have a very assertive type of behavior beneath it, where the last two are a more passive behavior. So I'm not surprised the attacking, controlling, pontificating, it can be scary. It can be scary because it's feels like somebody's coming on really, really strong. All right, we're going to be categorizing those. We grouped them for a reason because it helps us understand what it is that is going on in their amygdala? What is it that they need that they're not getting that's driving the difficult behavior? And I want you to take in what I said earlier in a different way. I want you to really be able to go back every time you see someone who's difficult or you work with them or you're managing them, that you can be like, oh, I understand what is driving it. So I'm going to pop this up on the screen and I am not going to say a word. I just want you to follow along with what you see on the screen. Not having needs met drives difficult behavior. So if someone you work with is difficult, the answer is we have to give them what they need, because once we give them what they need, we remove the threat. And when we remove that threat, they no longer are stuck in their amygdala. They can then engage in rational thinking, in critical thinking. Now, when it's yourself, we can advocate for what we need if we can understand what's driving our own difficult behavior. There are other people that don't understand. So we help to identify by understanding what the behavior is, and then we attach the need to it. All right, so we're going to go through these needs, and I'm going to be asking you for some input to get a feel for what are things that are threatening to you. So think about which of these needs, there are four needs, which of them you fall into. All right. So if you identify someone as disassociating, despairing, or whining, their need is perfection. They are looking for assurances. They are looking for things to be right. Now, with that said, I'm not talking about right versus wrong. What I'm talking about is correct. They really need it to be correct. So, for example, if something is given to you and your need is perfection at that time and it is poor quality, that is going to feel like a threat to you. If you are being rushed, because if I get rushed, then I don't feel like I can do it 100%, you are going to feel threatened. Or maybe you haven't been given enough information to make a decision. You're a manager, somebody comes to you with a problem, and they're like, I don't know what to do. And they haven't even thought it through. And you're going to then feel like, well, I can't make a decision because I don't have enough information. And if I make a decision, it won't be perfect. It won't be right. And Beth, I saw something pop up. Was there something in the Q&A?
I'm getting a clarification before we bring it forward.
Okay, excellent. And then I will keep going until I hear more. All right. Then there also is going to be control, and attacking, controlling, and pontificating are all behaviors that we'll see when someone needs control. So when things are out of control, for example, a poorly run meeting, you've got a lot of work to do. The meeting's supposed to, this webinar is supposed to, you're supposed to be done by 1, and it's 1 o'clock and we're not done. You might feel that there's a loss of control of the situation. So it's not necessarily that this need is about controlling other people. It could be the situation, the circumstances need to be controlled. So some examples here of things that would possibly be threatening would be people who don't meet deadlines. We feel like it's out of control. People who move too slowly. Like they're not speaking quickly enough. They're not walking quickly enough. They're not responding to my email or my text message quickly enough. And let's say they don't respond, you have a need for that control. Your reaction may be that you take control by just starting to text them again. Hey, do you have an answer for me? I sent you a text 5 minutes ago. That could be an exaggeration, but hopefully that makes sense. Or irrelevant information. Like, I don't need all these details. They're irrelevant to doing what it is that we need to accomplish. So just leave that information out. Let's keep it brief. All right, then the placating, withdrawing, and yesing. This is a need for approval. Here we really want to get along. We want to see others get along. We want that camaraderie on the team. We want that teamwork. And so if there's division on a team, and we are in our need is for approval, that is going to feel like a threat, right? So we're going to protect or preserve, and we're going to move to a default behavior, which is a difficult behavior. And that may be that we withdraw because we're so uncomfortable, or it might be we just start agreeing with everybody in the room. We're just saying yes. Other examples, when we need approval, it's we're more focused on relationships than we are task. So if there's too much business and not enough personal connection, that's going to feel like a threat. And therefore, we will behave in a difficult way. And another one is just having people who are excluded, having their ideas excluded. Somebody mentioned earlier about, like, let me see, let me go up. Um, or maybe it was I'm trying to find it. Maybe it was from the Q&A, but along the lines of just having your ideas dismissed. And that may feel like I really need your approval right now. Not that you have to agree with me, but I need you to at least acknowledge it. All right. And then the last one is the need for attention. And this is where the teasing, exploding, and exaggeration comes in. So some things that could be threatening would be, I mentioned boredom is one. I'm bored. I, need some attention. So maybe I start teasing. Not giving credit where credit is due, like the right attention isn't going to the right people, or being excluded, like you yourself being excluded, or somebody that you care about being excluded, and maybe they don't get the recognition that you think they should get. And I'll tell you, this happened to me once. Real quickly, I'll share this with you. Years ago, I was at an all company meeting, and we were in groups working on problem solving something. And one of the overnight maintenance workers in our group came up with a brilliant idea. We put them on these big post-its. It was on the wall. And the facilitator, when they talked about it, gave credit to our leader and did not give credit to the person whose idea was. So I, after, took it upon myself. And it was a little bit of a probably exploding, but I took it upon myself to confront the facilitator and say, hey, you gave credit to the leader for this, but that's actually this guy's idea. And that was because I didn't think he was getting the attention that he deserved. Well, there was a problem. My behavior was difficult because guess what? That wasn't what he needed. That was what I needed. So I took my need and I projected it on him and I made a big deal out of it. So that was a real learning moment for me. All right. So Beth, is there something?
Yeah, we've got a couple of ones now.
Yeah.
So on some of these descriptors here, especially on the attacking and exploding, or even sometimes the teasing, it can be borderline bullying or harassing. So how do you, I guess, because I agree with your premise. People are looking, you need to give people what they need if you want them to stop the difficult behavior. But if you're being bullied, I don't know. Are you supposed to be placating or giving the bully what they need to not be harassed in the workplace?
Okay. Great question. Here's what I would say. If you know that it is somebody like is attacking you because they feel something is not in control and they're trying to get it in control, you give them control by giving them a choice. And that choice can be setting a boundary. So the choice can be something like, um, I'm going to ask to be spoken to respectfully, and then we can continue this conversation. Or if I continue to be talked to disrespectfully, then I'm going to end this and we can pick it up later. Which one do you prefer? So you give them control by choosing, but at the same time setting the boundary.
Okay. Um, and another one is, especially when you're managing up, I would say sometimes you have leaders who don't have self-confidence. So when they have team members who are very competent, instead of leaning into those team members and using them, they're threatened by them. So how do you give a leader who needs self-confidence? How do you give self-confidence to somebody?
It sounds like to me, in that scenario, and it would depend on the need. So let's say the need was for attention. Then what I would do as their employee is find the small wins and bring that to light. Like, I really like that you started that meeting on time, or I appreciate that you took time to be thoughtful before you answered that question. Um, or if it's someone like they make a mistake, to say, you know what, thank you for being human because you've taught me that it's also okay for me to take a calculated risk and then admit when I'm wrong. I really admire that in you. So that's a way of giving attention. Like, what are the things I can pull out and compliment them on that are genuine?
Hmm. I really appreciate that. You've taken me back to my years in the K-12 classroom when we had attention-seeking students, and they would say they used the phrase "catch them being good." So it
Mhm.
was finding the little things that they were doing in class that were genuine, but making sure you got that compliment in, so they didn't have to seek attention in negative
Yeah.
ways. So
Yeah.
cool. Very, thank you.
You're
Our,
welcome.
our, our people appreciate your answers that are
Okay.
coming in here.
Excellent. Well, thank you. So let's go back to Lori here, the person that I worked with, overly positive, would tell you what you want to hear, wouldn't always follow through, fluttered around, wanted to be everybody's best friend, and kept saying, it's a great day in eyewear. If you had to choose, if we go back to here and throw it in the chat, what do you think her need was? When I described the behavior, what did Lori need that she wasn't getting that was making her behave like that? And a best guess. She someone who needed perfection, needed control, needed approval, or needed attention. Right, I'm looking.
And just an FYI, FYI, Jeanette, it looks like
Yes.
the chats are coming just to you and I. Not everybody else can see them. So you may
Okay.
have to, when you're ready, narrate the answers.
Okay. I've had a couple of answers come in. I don't know if anything's coming in the Q&A side.
I don't think so.
Okay. So what I'm seeing coming in are both attention and approval. And you're spot on. I think it's one or the other. Like I explained that those are more focused on people, where the other two, the perfection and the control, that is more about task. So, yes, definitely would be attention or approval. Now, there are a lot of nuances that, I experienced working with her. And I also go back and forth between these two. Overall, I do think it was more about approval. She wanted to belong. She wanted to belong. She wanted people to like her. She wanted to um, be everybody's friend. Like approval. You like me as a human being. You like me as a coworker. So if you picked needing attention, I would say not knowing her. Um, Absolutely, I think that's a valid answer. Me knowing her, I would say it probably leans a little more toward needing approval, but nonetheless, you were getting it was either one of those two. So kudos to you. All right. So I want it quick. We have just a few minutes here. Did anybody in here identify as there may be difficult, them being a difficult person comes from needing perfection? And if so, what is one thing that feels threatening to you? And I have you put that in the chat or the Q&A, and I'll give like 30 seconds for each of these. Few that I mentioned earlier, things that would feel threatening to us, that would cause our amygdala to go in overdrive, cause us to want to protect or preserve, which causes us to go to our default behavior, which is a difficult behavior, is poor quality, being rushed, or not having enough information to make decisions. Is there one that popped up in the Q&A chat? Q&A, Beth, not the chat.
Yes, this person said this is me. When people question my expertise or abilities, I shut down. Um, and I think this can be, I'll say me as well, especially with deadlines. I like to meet deadlines. So if people aren't getting me their pieces of the project on time, that threatens me because I can't like take my time on my part of the project.
Yeah, you want to get it right. Okay. So for that person who needs perfection, that's what I want you to advocate for. Advocate for yourself. Okay, for those of you, if anybody out there identified as maybe their difficult behavior being needing control, what feels threatening to you? Three that I mentioned. People who don't meet deadlines for a different reason than Beth mentioned. People who move too slowly or irrelevant information.
And while they're thinking, in the chat on the last one on perfection, somebody said this all reminds them of group projects in school.
Oh, when you have slackers and it's like, come on,
Uh,
my grade's going to be impacted. All right. Anything on need control, and it's okay because there may be people out there that are like, I just don't identify as needing control.
or answering something out loud in a meeting like this doesn't feel like they have control.
Yeah, that could be being put on the spot. Oops. All right. Now approval. So things I mentioned, division on team, too much business, not enough personal connection, or excluding others. Is there anybody who wants to chime in on that one? You're welcome. Somebody needs to run to a 1 p.m. and they said thank you in the chat. All right, then let's go to the final one. Attention. Does anything feel threatening to you? I talked about boredom, not giving credit where credit is due, or being excluded. Are there any other things you can identify that are threatening? All right. So this is the summary. Give people what they need, and they will be less difficult. If they need perfection, give them perfection. If they need control, give them control. If they need approval, give them approval. If they need attention, give them attention, and they will be less difficult. All right, I'm going to turn it back over to Beth.
I'm working on it. Okay. So also while we do wrap up, if you have final questions or comments for the Q&A or the chat, I know it takes a while to type, so use this time to type. And we'll still get your questions answered, even if we need to stay a little bit late. I will say that this falls under, for me, the easier said than done category, Jeanette. So with that, I've put the Expert Edge training link back into the chat. One of the reasons we wanted Jeanette to take this topic today is because this is part of a larger series of courses that Jeanette has in the new Expert Edge sprints. And those classes will help do the action, the easier said than done part. They will go into more depth. So she's got a class on get to resolution. Deliver a diplomatic no, especially for you yesing people out there. And then the secret to dealing with difficult people. So today we did identification, but if you want additional